Hi there, it's microphone. Better. Hi there, it's Mark, back with another Lightroom tutorial, and today we're going to look at one or two little techniques to add some lighting effects into your pictures. I was asked a question about this recently, and having just completed a photo shoot in a local park called Jesmond Dean with Anna, who's a friend and a model who you can see on screen now, I thought there are some pictures in there which lend themselves to showing you some techniques. So this is a flavour of the shoot where Anna played Red Riding Hood, both demure and a little bit more ballsy with axes and such. So what we're going to look at today is adding a light beam. So from here to here, a little bit overdone in order to demonstrate the technique more easily on YouTube, and I'll show you how to tone it down very, very simply, or even increase it. And we're going to look at a light leak. So here the sun is towards top left, so we put a light leak in and add a little bit of colour. So if this is something you're interested in doing, then stick around. The pictures, the two pictures we're using, are on my website in a zip file, and the link is as usual down below. Go and collect those. I'll play the titles, I'll make myself a cup of tea, and in about 8 seconds time we will get cracking, and I will remember the microphone. Welcome to the other side of the titles. Hope you downloaded the pictures and you're ready to join in. Now, the title slide I had for this video in the YouTube library said, "What no Photoshop?" And to a degree I stand by that, insofar as 2-3 years ago I would use Photoshop far more regularly for doing what now are very basic edits in Lightroom. Examples being some of the masking that you can now get, the luminosity and colour range masks. See my previous videos, I'll link to one in particular above on luminosity, which really have come on in leaps and bounds. Object removal, there's a whole new set of features that have been brought in over the past few years that make that element of Photoshop superfluous. However, Photoshop really still does have its uses, whereas we can take a picture like this in Lightroom and can now add things like a lighting effect, which you couldn't a few years ago. You still need Photoshop for example, I don't know, adding a wolf in the background. Anyway, I digress. Let's get cracking with this first picture. D for our develop module, or indeed click on the develop tab here and make any adjustments we want, none required. So let's go straight into our masks and let's look at our first mask, which is a radial gradient. I will click on the radial gradient, I will start at the top left and I will drag it down. Now, one of the things that is important here, and by the way I don't mind it coming over Anna's face for this particular mask, the first thing we need to understand is feathering. Let me put a real bad exposure update on this so we see it on screen, and let's move the feathering all the way to the left. Here we see a very sharp edge, all totally blown out. The exposure is at +4, which is totally ruining this picture. However, if I feather it all the way over, then despite the fact it's 4, if I switch this off and on, it's not as bad. I mean, I don't want 4, but the fact is that feathering has taken that all the way back down, and that's quite useful to know. So let's reset exposure. So what is it we want to change to get this haze, this light leak coming in? Well, exposure clearly would be one of them. Which of these sliders do we use? Well, let's give most of them a wriggle. Spoiler, it's likely to be the ones to do with brightening things, so exposure is probably a candidate. Highlights is probably a candidate, although very subtle. Shadows? Well, actually yes, shadows could be. Whites? No, a bit too subtle. Blacks? Do you think blacks would help us put a light leak in? Hands up everyone who says yes. Hands up everyone who says no. And the yeses are correct. Watch this. It adds a lovely dehazing effect, lifting the blacks. Speaking of dehaze, down here we have dehaze. Right or left? What do you think? Hands up. No, I won't do that again. Well, it's left. It would only take us a second to realise that. So if we take dehaze down from what we've seen so far, blacks up, exposure just a little bit perhaps, shadows, that's looking like a light leak to me, but it's too white. So why don't we try and colour it? Which way? Do we want to cool it off or warm it up? I'm suggesting warming because it's supposed to be the sun breaking through. And let's saturate it a little bit more as well. Do we want to take some of the green out by moving slide slightly magenta? I think possibly we do. Let's close that just for the moment and let's see how far we've come. Our backslash key tells us before and after, before and after, before and after. Let's go back in. Now in my previous videos on masks, of which there are a few, I've talked about how many times within a mask you can add things, subtract things, hold down the option key and intersect things. If all this is new to you, please check out my other videos. And we've talked in detail about building up a mask and refining it and really honing in on what we need. But the other side of masks is you could put masks on top of masks on top of masks. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. We've got quite a good feathering, but clearly we still wanted a bit more intensive up here. So let's just copy this mask. Click on the three dots and duplicate mask 1. Now that is too strong for my liking, and it's also not where I want it. I want to roll this back now, so I'm going to take this, what, about 2/3 of the way, a third less, something like that. And you know what? I'm going to do it again. So let's duplicate the copy. I'm actually not going to take this one back much further. I'll take it a little bit further. I rather like that. Incidentally, mask 1, copy. If any of these, if you really want to get organized and when you come back to it think which mask is which, you can always just rename them. So you could call this small leak top left, or whatever, medium, full, initial, or whatever. And let's have a look at that before and after with a backslash key. Would I refine this anymore? You know, I think possibly I would, but only for the purposes of demonstration here, that you can go back in and alter things. I think on our first radial gradient, the one that deliberately spilled over onto Anna, is possibly a little bit strong on Anna herself. So I'm now going to click on that and I'm going to subtract with a brush, and I'm going to bring my flow and density down somewhat, and I'm just going to brush over on a shoulder and face. And now let's look at the before and after. I've got my desired flare. I'm letting it go over her body, her arm, the basket, the foliage, but just for clarity, because her face is the focal point here, I've taken it off a little bit, not fully, because we brought flow and density down on the brush. And I think I will leave that one there for now. G for a gallery view, there's a picture, D for develop. Now to understand this particular technique where we've got a beam which changes in size, we need to understand a little few features about the brush. So let's just play. Let's choose a brush. Let's restore the flow and opacity. and let's take the feather all the way off and click once here. If you want to do a straight line with a brush, well, you can draw on a straight line with your mouse or tablet, or you can click once, move, hold down your shift key and click again. So it's possible, click once, shift, click. I've kept my finger on the shift key, click, 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 click. So you can actually get straight lines, which can be very useful if you're using the brush to go along a railway line and to do a lamppost, to do something which is quite straight in applying the effect. Let's get rid of those, Control Z. So that's feature number 1. Feature number 2 is the size of the brush. You can actually change it midstream. So let's click once. I'm on the same mask. Let's now change the size of my brush. Click again. Let's change the size of my brush. And click again. There's 3 different brush sizes, all on the same mask. Let's prove it by moving the exposure all the way up and all the way down. Okay. Let's combine those. So let's just delete this mask. Stick another brush in. What about click, move, reduce the size of the brush with my left hand bracket key, shift, click. That is very useful. And don't you think that looks like it could be the beginnings of a light beam? Possibly if we'd had a feather. Let me add a big feather. Click, move. I don't have to go large to small. I'm making my brush bigger now by going right hand bracket key, hold my shift key. So I've gone large to small or small to large, one with and one without a feather. These are on the same brush. That's interesting as well. We're not using this final little technique I'm going to show you, but it's worth knowing. And that is changing the feathering and flowing and density during the same brush. So let us say I want to use the brush and I'm going to make it quite smaller, just my size, with no feather. And I want to do the side of this rock, which has got very precise edges, albeit I'm being a bit slapdash, and I want to brighten it. By using the lack of feather and the brush settings, I'm able to do that. But I want that same amount of exposure over here in these leaves. But this is now getting very precise. What I can do here is I can actually lower the flow and density. I'm on the same brush, increase the feathering somewhat, and then more gently go across the leaves. So within this same one brush, I've actually got the same amount of effect applied, but in one I've got a very precise edged bit, and the other I've got more gentle and feathered. Yes, I made a little mistake here, but I've got more gentle and feathered. And that's also very interesting. But anyway, that's not what we're going to do. You've guessed what we're going to do, hopefully, from the previous demo. And that is, I want to start in the top left. And now this is in the way, so let's just make it smaller. Top left. And I'm going to click once. About there, I think. I'm going to move my... Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll take my flow and density back up. Click once. Come down where I think the beam's going to come, which is across top of a knee, through chest and head, down to the ground here. Make it bigger with my right hand bracket key. Stop about there. The feather's too big. Hang on, feather's too big now. To about there, and shift and click. There's my light beam. bit too big at the beginning, so I'm going to do that again. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, click on brush again. Now my brush size and feather were as they were set, so I'm going to do the other way around. I'm going to click once here. I'm then going to reduce the feather and reduce the size. And I'm going to come up here, hold down my shift key and click, and there's my light beam. A little bit funny at the top there, so I'm just going to straighten it off. Okay, what was our mix? Our mix was blacks up, dehaze down, and that could well be enough for this particular one. I do want to colour it a bit as well, and a bit of saturation. It's more strong than I want, but that's so I can better inform and demonstrate some of the refinements. If that was a torch shining on Anna, would it be on the back of her hair? Would it be behind this log? No. So let's bump this back out, subtract with a brush, and what I'm going to do now is with my brush I'm going to come in here, because it wouldn't be in there, it wouldn't be behind her, it wouldn't be behind this log, but it might follow the line of the shadow of the log down. It hasn't spread the foreground, so we'll get rid of it from there. It wouldn't be under the basket. It probably wouldn't be down the side of here or under her arm. Yeah, I think that's fine. So let's now switch that off and look at before and after. Remember, I'm exaggerating it, and that's a little bit better. I don't think it would be on the front of this log. So let's go back in and let's just click on that and subtract again with a brush. And let's get rid of it from the front of the log too. There we go. In fact, let's feather that some more. So let's get the feather larger, brush a bit smaller, and make that subtraction a little bit more feathered. There, I think, is better. Overall, I do want to bring the effect down, so I will use my global slider. So whenever you do an amalgamation of sliders, we've used dehaze and blacks and temperature and a bit of saturation. This is increasing all of them or decreasing all of them. In fact, if I go all the way left, if you watch my slider tops, they switch off because there's nothing selected, because I've taken the whole effect out. So whatever recipe I have here is globally adjusted here. So you can afford to be over the top while you do the initial effect in order to see it and then roll it back, which I'm going to do to there. And I still think it's wrong that it's on her arm here, so just subtract with a brush and take it off her arm there, like that, and off the side of that dress. In fact, assuming it's coming in behind Anna, then we want to just take more of the dress and just have it glancing on her knee. And that's it really. The colour I put in, the amount of desaturation or saturation, the amount of haze, that's all tunable, that's all to your heart's content. But the technique is what we're taking away from here. Let me know what you think. Leave any questions or comments below. Please click on that subscribe button and give this video a like, because that tells YouTube you like it, which makes YouTube put it in front of other people, which makes other people find the channel, which makes me feel happier so that I keep churning out more content. And also, if you have a go at this, let me know how you get on. I'll see you on the very next one. Bye for now.